Hi, and welcome back to the Stanley Parable in VR. And I don't think I've ever done this. I don't know if I've ever done this, but unusually for me, I am actually recording this straight after the previous session. There's a reason for that, and it basically comes down to the game trolling me. But in a way, I imagine it's supposed to. I guess this is the idea. So when I finished recording the previous session, I kind of went to exit to the main menu, assumed it would sort of save my progress as such, conditioned to that with most games and that these days, and then thought, hang on a second, like it's exited to a main menu, but then there's new game and things like that on the main menu, but there wasn't anything to sort of obviously resume the game. So I very quickly resumed it, and it seemed to start from the start again. So I did do a quick little search online, and it seems like that's sort of the point, that there's no end game as such. This doesn't come as a surprise to me, but there's no end game as such. You just keep going. So I'm coming straight back in just to get a feel for how this is going to work, because I hadn't really thought this one through. I hadn't thought through how the Stanley Parable works, how I would be playing it, how I would be recording it. I'd assumed there would be some kind of main story, as it were, that you got to the end of, and then you could just carry on mucking about and things like that, in which case that fits quite well with recording over a period of days or whatever, over my Christmas break, over my winter break. But if it's just you keep going through, you keep going through, you keep going through, there's no natural end to it. In which case, what I should probably do is rethink how I approach this, and maybe have a session every day or every couple of days or whatever, and just record for a period of time and then decide that's it, I'm finished recording. So I'm coming straight back in to have what I'm hoping is going to be a slightly shorter session than the previous one, just to get a feel for that. Right, let's set the time again, so it's actually 11:50 a.m. Actually, it's 11:51. No, not PM though. Damn, hang on. It's 11:50 AM. Oh, the thumbsticks are really weird on this. You kind of press down and it goes up, and think like there. Okay, that'll do. Close enough. 11:53 AM. Your favourite time of day. Okay. Or could you simply not resist giving me the correct time again? I did do this thing at the start when I started it up again before recording, about like, oh look, you've set the time twice now. Next time, why don't you just set a time and we'll make it your favourite. So it's definitely saving some kind of progress. After all, I know how much you enjoy setting the time correctly. Okay, now I'm curious how accurate 11:53 AM is. Let's use another slider to find out. How accurate is 11:53 AM? It's pretty accurate, actually. You know, can I just say, regardless of the accuracy of the clock, I'm having a great time adjusting these settings. I feel like I'm learning more about you and how you like things to be set. It's good to collect data. Okay. I wish we had more sliders, but we've gone through all the sliders I have. Perhaps I can invent some new sliders to gather new data on you. Shouldn't be too hard. Yeah, let me whip up a couple of new ones. Oh, I read that wrong. Should be ready by the next time you boot up the game. Oh my god. Right, so this is what I was on about, is begin game. There is begin game. There wasn't resume game.
This is the story of a...
Right, so I can skip. Right, so that brings me straight back in. Okay.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Stanley went
No.
around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single
No.
difference, nor did it advance the
Okay.
story in any way.
Right, I'm definitely going to make this a quicker session. Of late, I've been playing a Backrooms VR game. There's a few videos up for that, and I liked how surreal it was, but I think I kind of got bored of it, just because it wasn't that coherent. This, I think it's fair to say, is sort of the granddaddy of those kinds of games. Really, it has that vibe to it, right? I like how this has that feel to it, but it's coherent. Okay,
When
let's go this
Stanley
way.
came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Why does that one sound different? Oh, no, now that sounds different. Okay.
Yet there was not a single person here either.
Meeting
Feeling a
schedule.
wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Whiteboard manager. Space between the teenagers. What? Throw something in the ideas bin. I was hoping there was a bin and something to throw then.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here.
I still
he
feel like
turned
there should be
around
something
and
in
got
here,
back on
right?
track.
I feel like there should be something in there.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Did I do everything downstairs? I think I did.
But Stanley just couldn't do it.
No.
He considered the possibility
Okay,
of facing his
we're gonna
boss,
go around in
admitting
circles.
he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers
So I
blinking
feel
mysteriously out of existence
I've
in a single moment
exhausted
for no reason at all.
the downstairs
None of
route,
it
right?
made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went?
AB1112.
And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating?
2B4.
No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This
What
can't
does
be
it mean?
real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job
Okay,
pushing
just
buttons.
carry on going with
I
this.
may as well
I think
enjoy
the
this
going
while I'm still
downstairs
lucid.
option
So, he imagined himself
has
flying and
probably
began to
been
gently float
exhausted,
above
right?
the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so
Way.
much fun,
It's kinda cool.
and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking?
This was the
Now the voice was
option where I
describing
kind of
itself being considered by Stanley, who
glitched out
found
the
it
map,
particularly
right?
strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself?
Did they say that last
Stanley
time?
is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago?
Hang on,
How
is this
else would the
different?
voice
I think
explain
this
all
is
that?
different.
This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control.
Or was I just
that
not
this
paying
was a
attention
dream.
last time?
So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress
This
on his
is
back,
new.
the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Huh.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
And back to the start.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place
Oh,
at work.
that's not
But
great
on
in
this
VR.
particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
So that wasn't great because that was just fixed to my face, that image. So as I moved my head, the whole thing moved with me. I wanted to naturally look around, but of course the problem is when you get something that's sort of in VR stuck to your face and it moves as you look around, you actually feel, it's really hard to keep your balance. It would have been nice if I could have looked around that scene. Okay, so that answers a question. It is definitely saving the game, as in it's saving the routes I've taken, it's saving the choices I've made. So actually going downstairs made a difference, even though I feel
All
like
his co-workers were gone.
I'd
What could it
exhausted the
mean?
possibilities down
Stanley
there.
decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person
How many
here
routes
either.
through this are there?
Feeling a wave of
Right, wrong way.
disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might come
Right.
into a staircase.
Should I go
Stanley
that way?
walked upstairs to his boss's office.
All right, I've got to do one more run through the downstairs. Well, at least one more run through the downstairs, because I want to know what
Stanley
happens
just
now.
couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk?
There's this
All
interesting
because he
thing as well
believed
of
everyone had vanished. His boss would
how
think
much
he was
patience
crazy. And then
do
something
you as the
occurred to
player
Stanley.
have
Maybe, he
to
thought himself,
listen to the
maybe
same
I
old
am
stuff?
crazy. all of my
because I feel like
co-workers
I'm going to have to
blinking
go through
mysteriously out of
most of the
existence in a
dialogue
single
again,
moment for
monologue,
no
I suppose.
reason at all.
I'm going to have to
None
go
of it
through
made
most
any
of
logical
this
sense.
to
And as
find out
Stanley
what
pondered
happens
this,
next.
he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically
Almost
behind him
testing your
wherever he
patience,
went? And for that
testing
matter, these rooms
how
were starting to
willing
look
you
pretty
are
familiar.
to
Were they simply repeating?
battle through the same
No,
stuff
Stanley
again
said
and
to
again.
himself,
It's almost
this
like
is
it's...
all too strange.
I,
This can't be real.
I recognise that
And at
I'm
last,
probably
he came to
saying
the
things
conclusion
now
that had been on the
that
tip
plenty
his
of people
tongue.
have said about
He
this
just
game
hadn't found
when
the words
they've
for it.
done reviews and
I'm
critiques and stuff like that.
dreaming, he yelled.
So
This
there's
is all
not
a
going to be anything
dream.
novel here. This is my
Oh,
first
what a
reaction to
relief
it.
Stanley felt to
But it
have
also,
finally found
you
an
know, it
answer,
kind of feels
an
like
explanation.
this
His
is
co-workers weren't
this
actually wrong.
aspect of it
He
is sort of
wasn't going to lose his job.
commentary
He
on
wasn't crazy
roguelike
after
games
all.
and things like
He
that.
thought to himself,
How
"I suppose
willing
I'll
are
wake up
you
soon. I'll have to go back to my
to
boring real
go
life
through
job
the same
pushing
stuff
buttons?
again
I
and
may as
again
well
and again
enjoy
to
this while I'm
progress?
still lucid." So he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground.
Okay, so it's all the same so
Then he
far.
imagined himself soaring through space on a magical
Yeah,
starfield,
space.
and it too appeared. It was so much fun,
Space.
and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up.
Okay.
How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head
Yeah.
dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking?
Yeah.
Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley.
Okay,
who
we know
found it
this, we've been
particularly
there.
strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice
You go
spoke
through
to all
backwards.
people in their dreams,
Can I remember the way?
the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have
Can
to
you
take
go-
responsibility
try and do it
for
backwards?
himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his
Can't remember
life.
the way.
Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that
Damn it.
this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just...
Now
He
what?
would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that
Yep.
this was a dream.
Okay.
So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket
So
on his
this
skin,
bit was
the
different,
press of the mattress on his back,
but it's repeating
the
again.
fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself.
What's going to happen this
I'm through
time?
with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Right. Screaming. Screaming next, right?
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am
So,
real. Please, just
do we
someone
go-
tell me I am
do we
real.
reset and
I
go
must
back
be
to
real. I
Mariello
must be.
again?
Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
Prepare for the not great experience in VR.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
Okay.
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work.
Same
But
so
on this
far.
particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that
So the
moment,
thing I'm
she thought to
contemplating
herself how
now
lucky
is,
she was
have
to
I
be born.
exhausted all the
I am
options
safe.
downstairs?
I am in control.
Or would the
of my
game
life.
troll me enough that,
I
like,
know what is
if I
real
go through it
and
half a
what
dozen
isn't.
times,
It was comforting to
then
think
this will be
and in
different.
a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The
Wish I could
very
look
important
around.
people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Okay, so I feel like we've exhausted downstairs.
All of his co-workers were gone.
I don't know how much I trust this
Stanley
game
decided
anymore.
to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
How is 420 not?
Stanley went
Table.
around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
Oh, that actually advanced one. I'll just turn that off. That doesn't do anything. I'll turn that off. Is that an old IBM AT? Looks like it, doesn't it? It's been a moment. It looks like one of the really early Dells. Remember using a Dell that was that kind of shape back in the day. It had a key on the front that you turned to lock it and all that kind of stuff. Although it also had a clock speed readout as well. Oh, I've forgotten which way I've gone now. Boss's office.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Okay, not going to go
Yet there was
downstairs
not a single
this
person
time.
here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Fancy. Very fancy. Why can't I flush the toilet? There's nothing to interact with here. What is that? That looks actually kind of familiar. Did I look in here before? Oh my god. Business strategy. Oh. Still don't know why I got it. I'm sure I've seen this glove in any number of other games. I feel like this must be... Oh! I can duck. I didn't know I could duck. For a moment when I looked up there, why is there a circle appearing? Also, how long's this lift ride? So I can duck. That's using the trigger on the left. Really, game? Oh, are you... This game is such a troll. Graphs. How to be good at quarterly percentile. Indoors monthly. Help, I can't find my cat. Could be indoors. Could be indoors? See, that just seems like a typo. Generally, normally, I'd look at that and go, yeah, oh, that's a ridiculous typo in a game. But, like, I just don't trust this game. That, like, that isn't something that's really important and significant.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
I want to know what happens if I get it wrong. Oh, I was hoping something...
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
I was really hoping that putting the wrong code in would come up with something completely different. Okay, looks like there is the only one way to go.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Is that the same dialogue or monologue? Is that the same text as before?
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
I didn't see that before. Oh my god, I've got to stop.
Although this passageway had the word Escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
I'm going to keep going anyway.
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
It seems like an endless corridor though. Oh, here we go. Let's do it. Oh! I was expecting to reload.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever.
Can I not
Stanley
jump?
can't see
Wanna
the
jump?
bigger picture.
Wanna
He doesn't
jump?
know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss,
I can't get
like
out.
plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Oh.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Ha! Or not.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
This is me actually walking. As I walked closer, this opened.
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Nature paintings. Okay. Stanley's computer. Oh, what's this? Office layout. The blueprint shows the office from the beginning of the game. The path from Stanley's office to the two doors was the first part of the game that was built. Sections have been added and altered throughout the development though the core layout remains almost identical to the first iteration. You gotta love it when a game gets completely meta, don't you? The pacing of this opening section was important to get right. The corridor has been moved and altered to make sure the player reaches the 2 doors in a good time. So there's the 2 doors. The 2 doors. The set of the 2 open doors was the very first concrete piece of the Stanley Parable's design. Once this room was created, the rest of the game emerged as an extension of it. An exploration of the contradiction of this room, this room posed. Okay. And the office computers. Okay, once they're turned off, I can't turn them on again. Who's the other narrator, though? The lady narrator. Button sounds. I swear one of these button sounds it's the other way around because of how time works, but one of those button sounds almost exactly like the button sound that's used in VTOL VR. I now feel like there's a little Easter egg in VTOL VR that's a nod to the Stanley Parable. That was my computer, wasn't it? My computer? Oh my god, I've become Stanley. Okay. You won't let me walk into this. I want to walk into this. Why is there no jump? I want to jump. Maintenance room. An early version of the maintenance room. This is bizarre. Warzone. Early in development, we designed an ending where Stanley would end up on a battlefield fighting aliens. The action game would become sentient and would wage war against the narrator. We realised shortly after starting to build it that it was far too jokey and on the nose for the tone of the game. Plus, some people interpreted it as making fun of people who like shooters, which was not our intention. There's some serious Tron vibes going on there, isn't there? Ultra Deluxe announcements. In December 2018, we announced the Ultra Deluxe version of Stanley Parable at the Game Awards. These are screenshots of the videos we made for the announcement. Games delay. And the games for the announcement and the games delay. There was a delay? Was there a delay? I really wasn't following the. After the second trailer, we asked people to email the narrator for questions. While we had initially planned to use these further promotional materials, we never found the perfect use for them. Here are a selection of the emails. I have a question for you, sir, and it is what? Oh, didn't see. There is a skeleton inside of you. There are more skeletons in this world than humans. That's actually true. Am I Stanley? Are you spying on me? Will the game feature capybaras? Oh, I could stand here and read those all day, couldn't I? Am I just stuck in here now? A doorway to maintenance in the lounge. Obey, disobey. The flow of hallways following the first 2 doors was important to get right, since players will replay them so many times. We discussed a number of designs, but ultimately it was the simplest version that won out. Oh god, this was going to be a quick dip in. Second time. Just to... From left to right, the evolution of Stanley's office over time. The first was created in November 2011, the second March 2012, and the third February 2013. Okay, they are all subtly different. Yeah, this was going to be a quick dip in. And now I'm stuck in here. Oh. What? Countdown desk. One of the desks from an early version of the countdown ending?
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let time...
Ouch. It's all gone black. Nothing's happening. Oh, here we go. Okay. I'm more confused than ever, which is probably a good thing. Right, I'm definitely going to leave it here because that was a longer session than I was anticipating. I just wanted to come in and see what happened if I started the game up again. So it seems fairly clear to me this second time in that while there's not an obvious save game feature, that kind of thing, it is remembering what I've done and is modifying things as I go. What I find interesting though is like, have I exhausted downstairs? Because I feel like I have. I've been through there, 3 times now? I got a second approach the second time. The third time, it was the same as the second time, I think. It seemed like it was the same. So I feel like I've exhausted downstairs. But I don't trust this game. The more I play it, the less I trust it. And I love it for that. I'm still unclear as to exactly what the deal is here. It's like, obviously we make our own point. We make our own purpose when we play games. Some games we play, there's a very obvious linear story. So at the moment I'm playing Cyberpunk 2077 on PlayStation 5. And there's lots of side missions and stuff like that. But there's obviously a fairly linear story. There's choices to be made. You get slightly different outcomes and stuff like that. But it feels like, the point is you're working your way through the story and you're going to get to a conclusion. Same with GTA 5. Pretty much the same story all the way through. And then you just get a choice of, an ending. Is it 4 endings? I think it's 4 endings, isn't it? I can't remember. It's been a while. I've only ever chosen the same ending, by the way. So there's that. This, I'm guessing there isn't a conclusion you're aiming for. I'm guessing the whole point of this is to try and follow every path through the game, if there's a point at all, which now has me having this meta thought within myself of, is that the point I'm making for this? Like, have I already completed the game? Already after my first session in, there's a badge on my Steam page or whatever, on the achievements for this game that says I finished it. Because, I finished it. That seems to, I got out. I escaped. But that was after about 10 minutes. So that's obviously not satisfying. That's certainly not £10 worth of game, and actually that was on sale, so it's £20 worth of game. So then there's that thing of, it's now up to me to create a purpose for this. And again, I'll say the thing that I was saying earlier about like nothing I'm saying here is novel. I'm not trying to actually say anything novel or clever or deep or meaningful about the game. This is just my spoken out loud reactions to playing this. Once I've played this enough, I think I will go off and make a point of actually going and reading some essays, and maybe what I imagine there's a bunch of video essays on YouTube and things like that about the game. I think I'll have to have a look at them, because this is definitely doing for me the similar kind of thing that the beginner's guide did. I won't go into all the details, but beginner's guide, the point of the story, or the point I took from the story, or the part of me that the story spoke to, hit importantly at a very important time. And yeah, it's just one of those games that actually, it's even a game, it's an experience, whatever. It's a story, it's a work of art. I believe it's a work of art, and it's a work of art that actually touched me and will stick with me. This is starting to tickle that same thing. This is obviously not just a straight up game. There's no real puzzle elements to this. It is sort of a linear walking simulator, as you know, we tended to use those terms, but there's so many different paths to it, and I feel like the point of this is for me to choose my own entertainment, for me to choose my own point, for me to choose my own purpose in playing this, because I could stop now. I've had 2 sessions, I've seen what it does, haha, very clever, it's mucking with me, but I want to embrace it. I want to get inside the game. I want to have the game. I want it to take on a purpose that I'm inventing for it. But at the same time, it's like, but did the creator intend for me to do that? And blah blah blah. You get the whole thing. It's working. It's getting to me. I'm loving it. I'm even slowly getting used to the fact that the scale is completely wrong. Again, that won't come through on a video. Like my hand is the correct size, and that, I don't know, it's hard to say. It's kind of hard to convey. That feels like a very small desk. I feel very short as well. And yet when I put my hand on this desk, I don't know, ooh, it pushed me away. Like that cup feels about right size for my, and yeah, the scale of things in here is just a little off, but the fact that there is a VR mod for it all is just utterly fantastic. And I'm actually really glad that my first ever experience of the Stanley Parable is in VR, because I don't know, it just feels like it's hitting differently than if I'd played it flat screen. I think I would have been less invested, I would have been less drawn in. Anyway, I'm going to go now. So from this second, and definitely won't be the last over the next 2.5, well, I got about 2.5 weeks left for my holiday, I think. This won't be my last dip in. There will be more of this, no question about it. So from my second dip into the Stanley Parable in VR, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.